the split has the markets a little bit in a tiff. Is it really an indication of policy going forward?
I think the voting is a very good reflection of the finely balanced decision. I don't, my message to markets is don't take it any, in a sense, don't read more into it than that. It's a reflection of how finely balanced this decision is. Now, what does that mean, you're going to say? Well, yeah, we've got risks on both sides. So we were always expecting that we were going to see this rise in inflation. It's not a big one, but we're expecting to see it. It's a little bit bigger than we thought it would be. So we have to be very focused on, are there going to be consequentials from that? On the other hand, I think the labour market is softening. Pay has come in a bit below where we thought it would be, and that's the downside risk. Is that going to pass through? And the context is one of softer conditions, weaker inflation, and we're balancing that. And so different members take different positions, and I've always encouraged that. And the only thing I do insist on, which we've done, is obviously that we reach a decision, which we've done. Of course, we've done that, but that's the point. I mean, I think the balance of views is a very accurate reflection of how finely balanced it is.
But has the MPC ever been so divided?
We've actually never had to be in this situation of having to have two votes to produce the majority. Absolutely fine, we can do that. Not difficult. But again, I think it's a reflection of just how finely balanced the situation is. So my message to markets is that this is a very finely balanced situation.
But finely balanced or complicated?
Well, I think it's finely balanced. I mean, you might say that there's a lot of things going on under the surface in terms of influences on it, but it is finely balanced.
Investors or markets are pushing back almost to actually no cuts this year. Could that make sense to you?
Well, I think the fact that pricing is now, more sort of 50-50 going forwards, I think is a reflection of the fine balance. So that doesn't surprise me.
But you're happy with that? There's no,
well, I try to avoid pronouncing in that's a slightly sort of grand scale. But I think if we say something is finely balanced, I'm not surprised when you see that outcome. Perhaps that's the best way I can put it.
Governor, when you look at the cycle, are we starting to approach the end of the easing cycle?
I think the path is still downwards, and over time, I think there's more uncertainty about the sort of step by step, exactly when the steps are taken. Put it that way.
Are you expecting a stabilization when it comes to the labour market? I mean, was April the worst of it because of some of the things that the government put in place?
Well, what we've seen since May, when we did the last monetary policy report, is we actually haven't seen a lot of news on activity and the outlook for activity. What we have seen is actually pay increases come in a bit below where we thought they would be. Now, given that we were starting from a level where they were considerably above, obviously any level that's consistent with the inflation target, the fact that that is happening obviously is welcome news. But that's the context in which a good part of the context in which we have to reach the judgment.
So how do you look at the labour market over the next couple of months?
Well, we think, interestingly, our agents around the country they do an annual pay settlement survey at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of this year, they said they thought it would come in around about 3.7 as the sort of the middle of it, and we think it's actually pretty much on course for that.
Inflation. Talk to me about inflation and the possibility of second round effects, given all of the tariff turmoil that we're seeing in August.
So. Yes, I mean, there's obviously a vast amount of news being generated in the world economy at the moment, and we have to factor all of that in. However, having said that, actually, in our deliberations, I can say to you that actually it was the domestic situation that was more important. Now, that's not because I'm in any sense relaxed, in any sense dismissing the whole tariff issue. It's important, and by the way, I mean, we've obviously had the news that we've had since May means that the sort of average tariff level's a bit lower than we thought it would be in May, but it's still well above, obviously, where it's been in history.
But could you see it biting later, basically, as exporters readjust? It's unclear how exporters in general around the world will actually.
Yeah, I think it takes time for this to fully come through, and we've always thought that. And by the way, on activity, we've also said that I think how that maps through into inflation is quite ambiguous, and I would continue to hold that view, to be honest.
Governor, on QT, you've noted pressures in the long-dated bonds. Should the BOE actually continue to take a cautious approach in this part of the market when it comes to sales?
We've obviously published our usual box in the August report, which will obviously be a backdrop to the decision we'll take in September. I've said a few times recently that I think one of the factors we do have to take into consideration is how that steepening of the yield curve. It's a conditioning factor that we take into account. I'm not going to prejudge how we're going to do it because we haven't taken the decision yet, but we will take this. But I think, I've said a number of times, this steepening of curves is a global phenomenon, obviously. That's what we're seeing.
But I know you don't want to prejudge, but what's your gut? What would you do if it were, if it was just you?
No, my guess is I haven't prejudged it. I mean, we'll come to that decision.